Hello everyone, today I'm going to be talking about a recent release, Run, Hide, Fight. After seeing this film and more importantly seeing the controversy surrounding it, I knew I had to make a video about it. The two takes that seem to exist for this film is that 1, it's pure genius and its only fault is not bowing down to the progressive left, or 2, it's a conservative power fantasy that trivializes a serious issue and presents an unrealistic and dangerous response to a school shooting. So which of these is correct? Let's find out. Run, Hide, Fight premiered on September 10th at the Venice Film Festival before being released on VOD last week. The film is directed by Kyle Rankin, stars Thomas Jane and Radha Mitchell. Run, Hide, Fight is the story of Zoe, a high school senior who in the midst of an elaborate school shooting narrowly escapes being taken hostage by its 4 perpetrators. Instead of fleeing for safety, she decides to rescue as many of her classmates as she can. As you may have guessed, it's essentially a Die Hard clone, but it takes place in a high school. Zoe, our protagonist, is outmanned and outgunned, and she uses her wits, her survival training, and her imaginary best friend to defeat these villains. Also, her imaginary best friend is her dead mom. In general terms of quality, the film is best characterized as if Blumhouse made an action movie. It's clearly not a high-budget film, but it's clean and well-edited and has enough production quality to not pull you out of the film. It has a certain sleekness to it, and it's well-directed and edited. In terms of the positive, the protagonist Zoe looks and acts like a teenager while still being likable. The extras also look like high school seniors, which is nice, and the film has some great action sequences. The interactions between Zoe and her mom are sweet and genuine, and I think they're probably the best part of the film. On the negative side, the dialogue is weighed down by some cringy choices that I think felt a lot cooler in Ranker's mind.
Trigger warning.
And maybe teachers with no idea which words were triggering you just didn't want to see you flunk.
Hey, we even got a warrant for this?
No time. That's why I'm calling what you're now doing a wellness check.
Hey, roger that.
I just imagine Ben Shapiro and Dennis Prager high-fiving after every joke and saying, "We got him, stupid libs. That'll show him." Also, this is a nitpick, but the best friend character, who's treated as a love interest at the end of the film, is pretty, I don't know how to say this. He's pretty gay. Now listen, this could be me, but watching these clips...
Roy Moak and Chaz Harding. Oh, and AJ Turner's in the back, like an asshole casserole. The swim captain will have Thai food delivered to class, and Becky Vaughn will set up her homemade slip and slide near the auditorium. Giant person when I'm in pictures, even though I'm actually really small. But no one needs to know that.
Bye
you know.
now.
Okay, so I'm thinking you've been to your locker, and you're taking it wrong.
How should I take it?
Like a goof, like a lighthearted friend thing. We'll go and we'll make fun of people together.
Again, this could totally be me, but as a closeted homosexual, I feel like my gaydar is on point on this one, and I feel like he's almost certainly was just a gay best friend character, and then at the last minute they felt the need to have a love interest, so they switched it on us.
Just tell me at prom.
Yeah.
You're not the only good thing in my life. Oh, you're the best thing.
The last negative aspect of the film is that there are a couple of weird plot holes. Without spoiling too much, there is a scene near the end of the film where the protagonist attempts to persuade one of the shooters to help her, and it makes no sense that she would trust him. She literally gives him his gun and is 100% confident that her talk no jutsu will be effective, and that she won't get shot in the back. Secondly, and much more importantly, most of the film takes place after the initial attack. The initial attack begins when a van crashes through the wall of the cafeteria and 4 people with guns, including a machine gun, emerge and kill several students. Then throughout the rest of the film, Zoe goes to different classrooms in the same school, mind you, and has to convince teachers and students that a school shooting is happening.
Of munitions. What we want to point out is 160. All right. Thank you, ladies. Very clever.
Miss Hall, inappropriate. What in the name of...
We're under attack and students have guns in the cafeteria. This isn't a senior prank.
Thank you.
Isabel, leave your purse.
I'm so glad somebody finally decided to pull that fire alarm. Like, they didn't hear that, they don't know. Like, no one escaped and warned others or pulled a fire alarm. Nobody walked by the school and saw a giant hole in the building and called somebody. I get that they need it for the plot, but it's just completely unrealistic that you would drive a van through the wall, fire machine guns, and students are screaming left and right, no one notices, and it just gets harder and harder to take seriously as more and more people don't believe her, and are caught off guard by Zoe telling them there's a school shooter. As far as scores go, I'd give it a 2.5 out of 5. It's a fun B-movie that's worth a watch, but is weighed down by occasionally heavy-handed dialogue and a couple of big plot holes. With the review out of the way, we can move on to something I think is much more interesting than the film itself, the controversy surrounding. Although the film itself, with a few exceptions, wasn't overtly political, the promotion of it was. The film was produced and distributed by Daily Wire, the conservative news network created by Ben Shapiro and Michael Knowles, with funding from the fracking billionaires Dan and Ferris Wilkes. Many people wrongly believe that this was written by Ben Shapiro, or that he had a direct role in the creation of the film, which he didn't, but he did play a pivotal role in its marketing. The film was promoted as a response to Hollywood leftism and to explicitly promote conservative values through cinema.
Why are a bunch of folks who create podcasts and internet news releasing an action-packed thrill ride of a movie? The answer is because we are in the middle of a culture war. Okay, the fact of the matter is that the culture is dominated by the left, all the cultural institutions. And it's not just that Hollywood is dominated by the left, it's that their content caters almost solely to the left. So you need an alternative. You need a place to go where you can see entertainment that is not going to deliberately offend your values, where you can see a movie that is actually going to side with you and against a lot of left-wing tropes about the United States. The gap is the same thing even with movies like Wonder Woman 1984. When Wonder Woman 1984 came out, audiences basically looked at it and went, this is not good. Except for the critics. We're like, you know what? Sure, it's not a really good movie, but it's so feminist. It's filled with just amazing girl power ideals.
It should also be noted that Wonder Woman 1984 has a higher audience score than a critic score, kind of deflating this point. This promotion created a self-fulfilling prophecy where the film was explicitly promoted on politics and something that critics would hate but fans would love. Fans were told that they should stand up to Hollywood by giving it positive reviews and sharing it with their conservative friends.
I'm fully expecting that upon release of the film, there will be a second wave of critical hatred for the film, which is, again, one of the things that has happened not just to your film, but it's happened to nearly any film these days that does anything that crosses the woke. I mean,
this led to an interesting circumstance where a pretty mediocre film, and one that isn't especially political, became a battleground for the politics of cinema and the culture war as a whole, where we have critic scores based on the politics of school shootings and the legitimacy of conservative power fantasies. And on the other hand, we have audience scores created by a fan base of political devotees who have been told that by reviewing this film positively and proactively rating it that way, they're supporting conservatives in the culture war and owning the coastal elites. All which is ironic again, because other than a few cringy lines, the only conservative thing in the film is the reiterated statement that it's bad to shelter in place. And let's be honest, this film could have been a lot worse. It could have been about a teacher who secretly brought a gun to school in her purse and used it to kill some radical Islamic school shooters who targeted the Bible study club. So what are we left with? We're left with a mediocre film with polarized views based solely on the way it was promoted, regardless of how they feel about the film itself. Oh, and speaking of promotion, one of the shitty things that was done in the promotion of the film was the use of these quotes. These quotes are real, but are highly misleading, and you really should be suspicious as they're coming from Variety and Hollywood Reporter, exactly the type of woke film critics Shapiro was smearing earlier. These partial quotes come from 2 negative reviews that can be found on Rotten Tomatoes. The most egregious case is the case of the Hollywood Reporter, who in the line following his calling it a slick and compulsively watchable genre entry says that its most notable feature is the utter shallowness of its psychological perspective, hardly a positive review. The Variety quote that Daily Wire used is also negative, that calls it tasteless and needless. While this misrepresentation doesn't change the quality of the film itself, it is amusing that someone who maligns left-wing film critics isn't above quote minding to pretend those same left-wing critics like their films. Anyway, that's the end of the video. Please like, subscribe, comment, and have a good day.